What's happening? This is Joshua Boetsi and you're watching Sporting Icons.
Okay, so it is now official. Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn is now cancelled. Do you agree with that based on the videos that I've recently done, on what other YouTubers have done as well, across your social media, sources, articles, all that kind of stuff? What's your overall view of this fight being cancelled? Now, Conor Benn failing a VADA test, or adverse finding at least, because officially it's not a fail yet until the B sample's done. But he has passed UCAD. Eubank Jr. says he wants to fight anyway. Some people say, well, if the opponent's okay with it, they should just put it on. There's no belt on the line or anything like that. Conor Benn was not suspended by the British Box Board of Control and all that kind of good stuff. Now, really, when you look at it, Conor Benn failing the test is apparently back in early August. But it's only brought to light on yesterday morning, Wednesday morning. Does make you wonder why it took so long for it to come out in the public, and why in all that time a B sample was not tested. Now, if anything was to come out of this one, well, firstly, let me say I feel bad for the undercard. Those fighters, they've been training for weeks, maybe a couple of months, however, to be on this card. Now, they're not going to get paid, are they? Listen, maybe they're going to be compensated in some way, I don't know. But they're not going to have the fights. So you do have to feel really bad for the undercard fighters as well. Eubank Jr., he's been cutting weight like no one's business. We seen him yesterday. He looked ripped. So he's been punishing himself, trying to get down to the weight. Now the plug has been pulled. This big payday that he's been looking forward to is no longer there. Now, we could look at the things that Eddie Hearn and even Kalle Sauerland have been saying. They wanted this fight to continue anyway, which goes against everything that Eddie Hearn has previously said over years gone by about people who pop for PEDs. No excuses, you should be banned for life and maybe even serve prison time. But now, because it's one of his fighters, i.e. Conor Benn, somebody who he likes, and quite clearly he wants to please the father of Nigel Benn, he wants the fight to continue and coming out with what he passed or UCAD. But as we said before, if you're going to disregard the other testing agency, i.e. VADA, then why have it in the first place? You shouldn't have had VADA in the first place then. If they were going to come back with a result that you didn't like, for you to just ignore it. This shows, Eddie Hearn, he's spoken about integrity before. He says, people say what they like about me, but they can't question my integrity. Your integrity has to be questioned. It has to be. Because you were willing to put this fight on anyway. You've been sat on this news for a long time, but you wanted the fight to go ahead anyway. Why? For money. It's the only reason. It's money. He says he doesn't need money. Well, money has to be a motivation behind it. It's a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort has been put into the promotion of this one, and they've done fantastic with it. They really have. But the reality, though, is that this is a fight that never needed to happen. It didn't. The public weren't calling for it. They weren't. This is not a case of two contenders now clashing who happen to have their family history of their fathers having two great fights. No, there was no reason for this fight. Conor Benn is a welterweight. Eubank Jr. is a middleweight. And getting Eubank Jr. to cut below middleweight limit and then put in a rehydration clause was bad enough. That was already dangerous for him. But then potentially, Conor Benn taking PEDs. As I said, we're still waiting on the B sample, so we can't throw him under the bus. We need to wait for that one. Like I said with Dillian Whyte, like I said with Jaron Miller, like I said with many other fighters before. Yeah, you always have to wait for the conclusion. But people will already be judge, jury, and executioner. But the integrity does have to be questioned from Eddie Hearn. He wanted this fight to go ahead regardless. It's been a bad week for him. He has not come out looking good on this one. Sorry, people, but he hasn't. Listen, I like Eddie Hearn, but he has not come out looking good on this one. He really hasn't. People are already questioning whether or not he was part of the reason for the Fury-Joshua fallout. And now this as well. And the fact that it took so long for it to come out that he knew about this for quite some time ago, as did the British Box Board of Control, as did the fighters, as did quite a few people, but did nothing about it. Eubank Sr., Eubank Jr.'s father, has he been protesting about this fight, talking about boycotting it because he knew about this quite some time ago as well, but maybe wasn't allowed to put it out there in the atmosphere? People's integrity has to be questioned. I don't want to be hearing no more about Eddie Hearn saying, well, you can say what you like about me, but you can't question my integrity. We have to question your integrity, Eddie. We have to. Because you're going to put this fight forward anyway. Yes, he passed UCAD. But it goes against everything that you said before about fighters should be doing prison time and whatever else. Yes, they passed VADA. Yes, they passed UCAD, but they failed a VADA test. Well, what's the point in having VADA if you're just going to disregard it? These are the kind of things that Eddie Hearn said before. But suddenly now, because it's Conor Benn, one of his favourite people, his favourite fighters, because he wants to please Nigel Benn by the sounds of it, oh, that's all right, we should have the fight anyway. Now, I'm not saying whether or not the fight should be pulled or whether it shouldn't. Because I can see arguments for both, and yes, people have been looking forward to it for a long time. And you could argue if Chris Eubank Jr. is happy to fight him anyway, maybe just allow the fight. People are questioning about the doctor that's in camp with Conor Benn, who's also in camp with Tyson Fury and Joseph Parker and many other people, not just in boxing, but in other sports as well. Of course, I covered that in a previous video. Now, I at no point pointed the finger and said, you are to blame. At no point. At no point. But questions do have to be asked. He does need to answer questions. That if you are a specialist in testosterone enhancing or whatever the terminology is, well, if you're working with this fighter and that's what happens to be what he's failed a PED test for, well, maybe he's done nothing. But listen, at the end of the day, whether the doctor, whether the trainer, whether it be the manager, whether it be teammates, whatever, Conor Benn is responsible for what goes in his system, whether it's drink, whether it's food, whether it's tablet form, whatever. You are responsible ultimately. And now he's going to have to go through the whole process of trying to clear his name and all that kind of stuff. Of course, he's going to deny it, whether he's done something or not. And maybe he is innocent. Maybe he's innocent. Maybe pulling this fight, it turns out that he's actually going to be innocent. Maybe. We don't know. But you also have to look at as well the fact that what if something happened to Chris Eubank Jr. in this fight? What if? What if? Unlikely. I know it's very, very unlikely, okay? What if Chris Eubank Jr. threw the kitchen sink at Conor Benn and Conor Benn just smiled and kept walking forward and put a beat down on Chris Eubank Jr., knocked him out. He ended up getting rushed to a hospital, induced coma, gets paralysed, spends the rest of his life in a wheelchair, maybe dies. But Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, were willing to risk this. I know it's a small chance, very, very unlikely, but it's still a chance. It could happen anyway. And while Conor Benn may well be innocent, he may be. But while there's doubt, while there's a shadow, it's dangerous for Conor Benn as well. This is going to be weighing on his mind. Why would you go in there with someone like a Chris Eubank Jr., who's bigger than you, stronger than you, punches a hell of a lot harder than you? Why would you go in there not focused? Because you're worried about outside interference, outside issues. It's dangerous for Conor Benn as well. So, listen, at the end of the day, I'm not here to tell you whether or not it should be cancelled or it shouldn't be cancelled. That's entirely on the individual. A lot of people have booked hotels, already booked their travel. They've already booked their tickets and all that kind of stuff. Now they're going to have to wait around for a refund. Maybe some people can't afford to wait around for the refund and whatever else. That's what I'm saying. They should have done something about this when they found out, not just because it was made public. Anyway, that's my thoughts. You drop me yours. Click thumbs up, subscribe. Catch you next video.